down-to-earth tips and advice while doing our best to help you seasonally manage your garden and landscape. I'm Joanne Shaw, owner of Down2Earth Landscape Design, and with me is my co-host and co-author, Matthew Dressing.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Matthew Dressing, owner of Natural Affinity Garden Design. As landscape designers and gardeners, we believe it's important and possible to have great gardens which are sustainable and low maintenance, and we want to help you make it happen.
That's right. Hello, everyone. We are back after a short break. We are excited to talk all about August in the garden. What are you looking forward to this August? We'd love to hear from you. Visit our Down the Garden Path Facebook group to share your pictures or ask us questions about your August garden. And if you have show ideas, Facebook is the perfect place to write as well. Hi, Matt.
Joanne, hello. Welcome back. Yes, we've taken a little break. As everybody knows, Reality Radio 101. And we're doing the podcast on our own. So here we go. It's August already. Can you believe the summer is flying by?
It totally is. It is flying by, and I'm excited to, do these little shorter episodes for everyone. And I know we've received so many lovely messages for everybody. So thank you. I know you've missed us for a little while, but we are back.
That's right. And if you're listening now at home or in the car, we'd still love to hear from you. As Joanne said, you know what? You can always join or visit our Facebook group at Down the Garden Path Podcast is our handle there. Share us pictures. Tell us what you're doing this August in your garden. So, how has your summer been so far?
It's been pretty good. It's been pretty interesting because we've had hot temperatures, but we've also had rain. So it's been a kind of a weird summer, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've got a lot more rain. You're right. From compared to previous years, which is really nice. I always love that little break and the cool off
Yes.
from the rain. And
Yeah.
I'm sure we've all noticed. We were just talking about before the show as well. Lawns haven't suffered as much either, and we'll get into that as well. So,
Mhm.
you know what? I think everything is a little happier in the ground right now for all that extra rain that we've been getting.
That's right. And I have to say, I'm starting to feel that because I work outside so much, that I'm not even really feeling the heat. I think as long as my inside, like when I'm inside and sleeping and working and eating, it's cool. I'm not finding like everybody, the news was all last week about how hot it was and stuff, and I really didn't feel it. Like I think it's almost like they have nothing else to talk about, so they're just talking about the heat. Just like in the winter, they talk about the snow or whatever, right? So yeah, so I was kind of like, this just feels like July,
I
right?
agree. I feel the
Like
same way.
it is summer. Like I don't know. So can't really listen to the news. It was like, thank goodness, right? It was warm. So
Yes,
yeah, so I'm excited, and I think because of the rain, we haven't had to water our gardens or our containers as often as usual. So that has been nice.
that has been nice. Yeah,
Mm.
definitely.
Hmm.
Definitely.
How are things on your balcony?
The balcony is looking good. And you know what? Just speaking of watering, I actually added some of the composted hemlock mulch, a little bit more to all of my planters versus usually just the one or two that are in the sun growing the tomatoes and the other
Hmm.
veggies. And wow, has it helped quite a bit. So helped
Oh,
hold in all of this water and it's cut my watering easily by half. So
oh,
yeah,
good.
even in those shady spots, there's enough sun. So yeah, so things
Oh,
have been good.
that's good. Well, as we approach August, it's hard to believe that we have to start thinking about fall bulbs. But or
Oh,
but now is the time to kind of think about it. And we always said, like, especially we say it all the time, and we wrote about it so much in our book, but take pictures. See where there's holes in your garden where and if you did take pictures in the spring, now you can start planning for bulbs. And it's not time to plant them yet, but we know from firsthand that the best ones go the quickest, right? So the large, cool alliums, the cool colors of daffodils, the doubles or the double whites and things like that. I'm not a fan of doing tulips just because I don't want to battle the critters. But I know even if you are, have guts of steel to do that, if you want to fight the squirrels, a lot of the really cool colors, right, of tulips and the parrot ones, and they tend to go fast as well.
Yeah, the parrot ones are super cool, unusual ruffles. I have to do the exact same thing. I'm looking forward to looking at some bulbs. One of my clients really enjoys planting bulbs. Every year now is the time to start getting those catalogs and planning on what we're going to plant. So we're going to add more crocuses. We're going to add a few more naturalizing, like species tulips,
Oh,
and other things that will reduce my maintenance for uh, spring cleanup when the bulbs or summer cleanup as the bulbs start to fade
right.
away as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, I can't resist it. I love those parrots, but also those big peony head
Oh, I
tulips as well.
know.
They're
I
just so
know.
pretty,
I
and
know.
some of them have such a nice fragrance. But yes, so yeah, now is definitely the time. Check online for all your favorite seed companies. They may have some fall bulbs. Even just there are specific fall bulb companies out there. Things like Brex comes to mind for me, but
Yeah.
yeah, there are lots. And depending on where you are, because again, we know that you guys are all over North America listening to us here down the garden path. So it's time to start to take a look for them indeed.
Exactly. I think of I was in Costco this week and I haven't been to Costco in ages, but they have winter coats out already. So then that tells you like so they always plan ahead and we're so used to that. Like you can get bathing, the best time to get a bathing suit is December at, type of thing. So that's when you're going to start to see the bulbs come out. And the other thing is garlic. So
Yes.
if you've grown it before or if you're interested in trying to grow garlic, that's another thing. It's still too early to plant it, but buying it, ordering it, looking for the right variety for you, now is a good time to, August, I should say, not now, but August is the good time.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I was at a couple local farms just seeing what their offerings were, and yeah, garlic is all over the place. And yeah, now's the time to start thinking and looking for sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
Do farmers markets, have you been going to those? Like, do they sell the seed garlic as well?
I haven't seen the seed garlic. I've just seen like the full cloves you'd buy for
Right.
cooking, and then you'd break up apart. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so they've had some, and I usually see just kind of the common, like I'll see just the common white garlic, or
Hmm.
like an elephant garlic, or sometimes things like a Russian red or a Mexican purple
Hmm.
type. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I like the striped purple ones, see that little oomph of flavor. But yeah.
Oh, that's good. Well, I don't know if you caught or if our listeners caught my little exchange with our friend Julia,
Mm.
because I've been struggling with trying to grow garlic and I really wanted to grow it within my garden because I don't have a dedicated space for it and I've not been successful. So I dug up when I harvested this year, I was like, I sent her a message and a video of my sad little bulbs and I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And she just said that's not something you can do with garlic. Like, don't want competition. They want to be by themselves. I had them near my yew hedge, and I did read that the yew hedge wasn't acidic. Like yews aren't as acidic as some of the other evergreens, because she said they definitely don't like acidic soil either. But but yeah, so I think my goal of thinking, and the perfect world would be to have, garlic coming up in amongst my other plants. And I get scapes and everything, even though they're kind of wimpy scapes. But yeah, so I just think I need to just pass and support farmers and buy the garlic at a farmer's market and just know that I just don't have space for it.
Well, did you just sorry? I'm just listening to the story, and I'm like, how big of a space do you have in between some of the perennials? Like, could you bury a container and prevent the roots from coming into that space, and then like amend the soil just for the garlic, and then just keep it weeded? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, do you grow them just in a container on the balcony?
And that was what made me think of it too, was because I'm all container growing, right? Is yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I try to grow them in my large nursery pots. So I thought, well, what if you did like I did and then just buried it in there? But like you said, they don't like competition. I usually put them beside my tomato in my
Right.
thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I find that they do, the ones that are closest to the tomato do grow a little smaller than the others because of the competition. So yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I
Yeah.
do. And then again, because you're going to plant the garlic now in the fall to overwinter, me having them in a container as well, I do lose a percentage
Yeah.
of them. Unfortunately, higher than I'd like. So yeah, so maybe if you're experimenting with yours, maybe I'll experiment and try to overwinter them in their own container in a different way,
Hmm.
outside or in the fridge or something like that. Who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah. So if you were growing garlic and if you are growing them in amongst your other plants with success, so I'd love to hear you. But if that's what you were thinking of trying to do, what I'm doing, and you struggled, so Julie was very nice. We shared some stories back and forth on Instagram, and she did a video. I did my video to her, and she did a video back, and that was very nice. So yes, watch out for our Down the Garden Path podcast Instagram account because you never know what's going to pop up there, right?
That's right. That's right. Speaking of garlic and other edibles, fruits and veggies, don't forget to stay on top of harvesting and your herbs and your veggies, making sure that nothing is diseased. If your tomatoes are falling, they're not rotting in place. Just kind of keeping that sanitation up, and then don't forget to continue to trimming your herbs, your mints and your basils. We don't want them to go woody. We want to make sure that they're always producing nice, fresh green for you so that you can grab the best stuff when you go out and grab them. So, yeah, so keep pruning and snipping and harvesting as you go. If you do have some issues, I know a neighbor of mine actually has some grapes on their fence. As things start to come into being ripe, if you need to, you can also start to cover some of your ripening fruit. Maybe you need to put a bird net around your fruit trees, or like my neighbor, they put a thin mesh around all of their grapes just to protect them from visiting animals who might want
Ah.
to nip a few or take a few away for sure.
That's right. I have a question about lettuce. So my lettuce, I'm growing two types in one of my pouches. Like I've got one of those grow bags
Oh,
along the
yeah.
on the fence, and they've bolted. Can you like, are they then just garbage? Like you have to pull them out, or can you just trim back to like some of the lower?
You you might try cutting and coming again kind
Yeah.
of thing. But usually once they bolt, their internal chemistry changes a bit.
Mm,
So then the leaves start to lose or change their flavor.
okay.
So most of the time we rip it out. The season's grown so long and it's
Yeah.
yeah, a heat and a light thing. So yeah, I always rip mine out. I've actually never just kind of cut it back and let it
Yeah.
come again. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I've never
always.
had as much luck. Like I've had actually two or three like, harvests from it, which is the most I've ever done. So I may try to just cut it back and see. And I know we can start, but I think I'm out of containers because I know we can sprinkle some more seeds, right? And in the garden and start growing some more. But I
Right.
don't I don't know that I have that any more room.
Any more room? Well, if
That's
you
right.
do have some room, we do still have some time that we can still start to plant some things. As we get into August, we can start to sow some beans, beets, spinach, some other lettuces, things like turnips. We can always start planting a few of these things just to get our nice fall harvest. So even though you're harvesting and removing some things, we can still prepare, start to get a few other beans and beets and some root crops getting to get them growing. We're past the time for potatoes, but you could do as well maybe some carrots to put down and get a fall harvest. So even though if you are running out of room or you've harvested some and you do have some little bit of room left, we still have some things that we can plant. So don't give up just yet. I might actually go out and I bought a sugar beet, an albino sugar beet. Uh,
Ooh.
yes, and it's supposedly being a really good one for um, like drying and using as a like a beet sugar. So I'm gonna plant a few of those for my fall harvest. And then I also have just some sugar snap peas as well that only really grow like 2 feet tall. So I've got a little bit of space for those. I'm gonna try planting those.
Oh, very interesting. and annuals and perennials. So I still have an annual grass that I haven't put
Oh,
in a container. And I discovered I couldn't figure out why my Gora was not really performing. Like I had long stems, but no flowers, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I ended up walking between the two pots that kind of because they have gotten long that you're anyway. Long story short is I had aphids. So then I brought the aphids
oh,
into the house because I'm sitting at my desk and I'm like, oh my God, what are those green things? And I'm like, so I think when I brushed up against the long stems of my Gora, more whirling butterflies, some people know it as, I realized they were covered in aphids. So the aphids have eaten all my flowers. So I think I'm going to cut it back. I haven't decided yet. Just
oh.
hoping that it will rebloom for me. But yeah, so now is the time to spend a bit of attention, right, to your annuals, do some deadheading. Um, Maybe hit your annuals with your containers with some fertilizer if they're starting to look a little sad after the rain, because I think that's been challenging, right? The heat is making, is keeping them happy, but then with all the rain, it also not only does it water them, but it knocks off the blooms, don't you find?
Yeah, we lose some of the blooms to just some standing water, kind
Yeah.
of quickens them along. Then the heat, of course, like you said, doesn't help as well a little bit. Yeah, and then especially if you have like containers, right, lots of water. If your containers are out in the open and they get a nice, deep, thorough day-long watering in the rain, we get to see a lot of that leaching of some of our more soluble nutrients, and
Mm,
they flush away. So if you don't have something like a granular fertilizer that's slowly feeding, I know I've been doing just like a water soluble. So when my containers get too wet, I know I have to, maybe shorten my fertilizing by, every 2 weeks a water soluble. I might do it every 10 days if we get a few good rainy days in there just to make sure they're constantly fed. But yeah,
okay.
definitely keep them deadheading, keep them nice and fed. We can do that every 2 weeks all the way up until about Thanksgiving, or
Mhm.
whenever you rip out your annuals.
That's
Uh,
right.
yeah,
When you're
for
ready to
sure.
be done with it. And if you have some perennials in your garden, not to forget about the perennials, things like your salvias and your penstemons. Although I know salvias will rebloom if we deadhead, will the penstemons do that as well?
I have seen them lightly rebloom. Like I've taken off
Yeah.
their main stalks, and then like the salvia, there's a couple like axillary ones on the side,
Yes.
but
Okay.
but they never get as big as
Hmm.
the other ones, as your
The other
main
ones.
flush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my catmint, I do some pruning of that too because the flowers do kind of fade a little bit.
Yes.
So catmint's another one that you can do some deadheading and kind of encourage new growth. Lavender, I've wondered about that too, about whether you can get a second flush of lavender.
I've never I've never grown lavender here because I don't have
Okay.
the sun for it, and I choose other things to take up its space, like food.
Yes.
Uh, but the ones that I've maintained at clients, I've deadheaded them a little bit, and I've seen like maybe one or two, but like
Mm,
I've never seen like a rejuvenation pruning. So like
right.
hack it to 8 inches and it reflushes. So
Yeah.
that I'd have to say I honestly don't 100% know.
Hmm.
But
I may try, Matt. Why don't I
there you
try?
go.
Okay.
We'll try and we'll report to you on our next episode.
We will. We will. We'll
We're
see
on
if I do it
Facebook.
at the beginning of August, and maybe I'll see something at the beginning of September for
There
our
you
September in the Garden episode.
go. As you were saying too, aphids and other diseases, don't forget to take a look around. I know right now our peony foliage starts to look really rough with our powdery mildew. So powdery mildew is that white film that starts to take up over our leaves on our peonies. You'll also see it at this time of year on other things like your bee balm, your phlox, some of the larger maples like your Norway maples will start to blush with that little white powder. So we can cut back our peonies, we can cut back or remove any of that foliage that might have some of that powdery mildew on there as well. But right now, I mean, we've also got spider mites. You were saying you have aphids in your
Hmm.
whirling butterflies. I know I've got some aphids on some celosia, when that's a pain to get rid of. And then we also are starting to see our Japanese beetles. We're in peak season of
Hmm.
gathered clumps of Japanese beetles So remember, collecting those in traps, they do work. They don't bring in every single one within a kilometer or more.
As long as you only buy one trap. I mean, that's the thing. There's so
Yes,
much misinformation online about that. But yes, more is not better
correct.
in that case, because that's when it does, then you're amped up the pheromone, and that's where you are getting your neighbors bugs. So if you are, just follow the directions. They have the square meters and the square feet on there. You're only, but you do want to move the bag, not, or the trap, not right beside the plants that they're eating. You want to move it somewhere else
Yes.
in your yard. You don't need one for the front yard and one for the backyard. You just need one.
Yeah, or those they cover such a radius or a square footage now, and our houses are so small that
Yeah.
yeah, one along the side of the house where there's no plants they're going to eat will draw them all in for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
That's
And then
right.
just make sure it's somewhere sunny, as I say, side of the house,
Oh,
because they are warm. They like to move with the warmth, so you'll get a better catch that way for sure.
oh, that's a good point, because I always hung mine in under my shade tree.
Ah,
Okay, because
yeah.
that was away from my sunny spot. So yeah, that's good to know.
Oh,
Thank you,
there
Pat.
you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So moving away our annuals and perennials, keep deadheading, keep feeding if you need to, in your garden beds as well, because I think we all think a little bit of containers when we say the word annuals, and it's summer, right? So all those flowers. But don't forget, it's time you could also put down another layer of compost in your garden beds as well. So perhaps you're feeding a little bit more organically. There's always organic liquid as well as slow release fertilizers, but you could also use a nice, rich fertilizing compost, something that's nice and rich to put down amongst your perennials as well for a nice slow feed. So don't forget you could do that as well.
Yeah. And I know a lot of our listeners are trying to grow more native plants, as am I. And some of the reading I've done is they don't particularly, they want the crappy soil. Like they don't necessarily want to be amended and tilled and fertilized. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
And I know they're slow to get going. I know my pale purple coneflowers that I planted this year are not doing anything. I don't think I'm going to get a flower from them at all this year. So they can be pretty slow to kind of get established and to start blooming. So don't be throwing fertilizer or any extra babying at them. They are the ones that need the tough love.
Yeah, no, excellent point. Native plants like it a little rougher here around the space or in their soil. So you
Hmm.
don't have to overdo them with fertilizer. It's not going to cause them to suddenly send up flowers or double in size or anything like that.
Right.
They do enjoy that little bit of a rougher condition for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah,
And the other thing we were talking about a little bit before the show was, because of the rain, our lawns are looking pretty good, aren't they?
they are. Yeah, I haven't seen many go dormant yet at all because of
Hmm.
we all grow our cool season grasses, or at least we do here in the GTA of Canada or Ontario, wherever we are. Where are we? I don't
Yeah.
know. But here in the Greater Toronto area and most of Canada, we have our cooler season grasses. So as the heat ramps up, we start to see our grasses start to go to sleep. But again, like you said, we've had that nice rain, so it's stayed nice and green and lush. So luckily, we've had a pretty green summer as far as lawns go, for sure. For
So
sure.
far, anyway. So we'll see
So
what
far.
August brings. Yeah, we definitely see what August brings. I do know August is going to bring weeds.
Hmm.
So that's the time to really keep an eye before they get ahead of you. Things like crabgrass. You can, it's the thick bladed grass within your grass, the weed, and you want to get them as early as possible, especially after it's just rained. They'll be much easier to pull out before they go to seed. So if you can pull them out before they spread seed, that seed gets spread, will is what grows next year. So that's something to think about. I know it's hard when they grow like on the edge of the driveway or along the outside of the curb, where the asphalt meets the curb along, that's tricky. And when your neighbors have it, like even if you're taking care of your stuff, you're going to get your neighbors'
Yeah.
weeds. So weeds can be tricky, but you do want to try, and it's not the end of the world though. But you do want to try and stay on top of it. And there was the other one, the yellow flowered one we were talking about. That seems to be. I was admiring. I can distinctly remember admiring it last year in public lawns, like of that yellow. Like, oh, what is this yellow flower that's kind of in the lawns that's been blooming since like forever. And now I'm finding it in my own lawn, Matt. So, and you said it was
Ah.
called, remind me what it was called?
Yeah, it's bird's foot trefoil or trefoil, Trefoil. So
Ah,
yeah, I admire it as well. It's quite beautiful. But yeah, it's a little bit of everywhere and can be kind of invasive. And if left to do its own thing, like you said, it
yes.
kind of just spreads out and latches onto some lawns. So, or into your
Yes.
spaces. So it is good if you can remove it, but it is pretty because it's very long blooming as well. It's been
Yeah.
blooming since like the end of June, and it's end of July and still growing strong. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. So if you see that, you know it's not like a wildflower that's been graciously blown to you, or it is a weed. But
It
yeah, I
is.
mean, I struggle with, do I care if the lawn's weedy? Do I spend my time on lawns? Like it's just such a challenge, right?
Yes, it is. One of the things we're going to be lucky not to have to maybe spend as much time on with our lawns is grubs with all of our lawns growing so green, at least here in the GTA. Our green, thick lawns that we're keeping nice and mowed. The Japanese beetles won't be able to lay as many eggs in
Oh.
spaces. So hopefully that'll help reflect some of those grubs. But we are getting into August. If you do have some open spaces in your lawn from perhaps past weed damage, we can start to put down some nematodes in
Mhm.
a couple weeks to start getting those eggs. And if you've got a lot of Japanese garden beetles now or have in through the end of July, you can start right away at the top of August to get those hatching eggs because they only take 2 weeks. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, and if you're curious, we won't cover it in this episode of August in the Garden, but we have definitely check out our past shows. We've done several on nematodes, how they work, and how to best apply them. So yeah, so definitely check that out, and we've walked you through it several times over the last many years, right, Matt?
You've got it. You've got it. So check us out on all your major or your favorite podcast providers down the garden path. And we've got you covered there. Not only on
Mhm.
that topic, but lots of past great gardening topics and conversations.
That's right. And so when we go to like you to follow along almost in our book, for those of you who have purchased our book, and we
Yeah.
talk about August in the garden, there's not that much to do for deciduous trees and shrubs, is there? Because we've had rain, watering, everything should be fairly happy. Uh,
Yeah.
some pruning for shaping if you'd like.
Yeah. And that's all I've been really doing, even at my clients' houses. Just pruning some of those spring shrubs, shaping, removing a little bit here and there, just to kind of keep them looking good. If maybe you did a good spring pruning, you've got some topiaries or a hedge, and you've got some sprigs jumping out. That's kind of your maintenance pruning. Don't hesitate to just go out and just re-square off that little branch or take out those little sprigs that are jumping and ruining your nice little lawn there. But yeah, outside or nice lawn, nice little hedge there. But outside of that, yeah, we're basically just kind of watching them and letting them doing their thing, keeping their shape, and just watching for again other insect pests and diseases that might be after them. For
Hmm.
sure, for sure. Um, well, I was going to say we mentioned the watering. Here in the GTA, we've had lots of water, so watering isn't too much of an issue. But if you do have your a little bit more drought where you are, not as much rain as we've been blessed with this year, don't forget you can use a deep water root feeder, sorry, a Ross root feeder to water nice and deeply beyond your lawn and give those bigger trees and shrubs and hedges or evergreens a nice boost or a nice drink of water just for them. So keep an eye on those. Water deeply if you need to, and where you need to.
That's right. And how about our evergreens? Can we still, I think that we're getting to be, this August would be like the last time to prune like your yew hedges or your boxwood, right? We don't want to get too late into August, but you can do some light shaping.
Yeah, and like I said, just very much more like that maintenance shaping, right? Like we've got a nice spiral boxwood, but maybe on the sunnier side, or you gave it a little bit of extra food or water, or fed it once or twice more this year. We get a few little sprigs. It just kind of take away that nice head shape or that nice topiary shape, giving it a very light shear. Again, just taking up some of those sprigs to return it to its original shape is all we really need to do. We don't need to cut it back by 2 or 3 inches and reshape everything because, like as we said on the show before, right, pruning stimulates new growth, and we don't want lots of new tender growth going into cooler seasons, especially. I mean, for here, it's September, October for us in the GTA. But if you're further north in Winnipeg or one of the prairie provinces or Alaska, where we know we have listeners, that could be definitely sooner for you guys. And it may not be an issue in somewhere like North Carolina where it's 17
Right.
degrees in the middle of the winter. She's going to do whatever she wants
That's right.
down
That's
there.
right.
So yeah, so just keep that maintenance pruning, keep that shape. And then again, remember, we're always wanting to make the letter A as for our hedges, just so that we get those lower sticks growing in and fattening up. Our hedge goes right to the ground. And it doesn't become that little trash collector, I like to call it, all those little fingers gathering everything. But it's also a spot for those weeds to grow, and it adds more maintenance to your overall maintaining that beautiful look. Yeah, so not too much going on there.
That's right, in our August garden. So yeah, so we're excited. If you do have other questions, like we said at the beginning of the show, to please post to our Facebook group at Down the Garden Path podcast on Facebook. We'd love to hear from you there. And I think the best thing about that, I mean, I know everybody's like, man, about Facebook, but I think I love seeing the pictures.
Yeah, so I love seeing pictures of when people post the pictures. Exactly.
I do too. I do too.
So that brings us to the end. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on our return episode to Down the Garden Path. I'm Matthew Dressing here with my co-host and co-author, Joanne Shaw. And Joanne and I enjoy hosting Down the Garden Path. We always have, bringing you interesting and relevant topics to help you achieve a great garden. We do learn right along with you from our research and from the wonderful guests that join us on the show.
That's right. And don't forget, you can spend time with us down the garden path. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Down the Garden Path Podcast. You can also find us on your favorite podcast provider. And while you are there, please hit subscribe, the subscribe button, to be notified of new content. And please don't forget to like, share, and leave us a comment. We'd also love a review as well. That really will help our podcast, won't it?
That's right. That's right. We love hearing from all of our listeners.
Yes, you can. And you can always write to us at Down the Garden Path Podcast at hotmail.com or via our websites. You can find me at down2earth.ca with the number 2. And Matt, you can find him at naturalaffinity.ca.
That's right. Well, thanks again for everybody joining us. We'll see you next episode.
That's right. Thanks for joining us down the garden path. Bye for now.